Bob Sims. Bob was just another teenager, but Michael's execution of him turned into one of the most disturbing kills in history. After sneaking into the house of Wallace, Bob was ambushed by Michael. Wouldn't catch me lacking like that. He got brutally pinned against the kitchen wall with a single knife through the chest. The blade not only killed him instantly, but Michael paused, staring at Bob's lifeless body as it hung there like a creepy trophy. Aw, man, don't waste the knife, Michael. But if you thought that was disturbing, the next one was much more painful. Bathroom stall. A pair of journalists are doing a documentary on Myers, not an ideal school project. After tormenting him and making all the other patients at the good old insane asylum completely freak out by holding up Mike's mask before they hit the road. But unfortunately, they are too slow. After Michael manages to break out of the facility, he runs into the two down the road at a gas station. Sucks for those guys. They find themselves trapped with him in the most claustrophobic space possible. They're pooping. Nah, but they are in the toilet. You, Michael, get some boundaries. Michael slams the dude repeatedly into the bathroom wall with such force that his head got fucked up. Instead of making a run for it, the girl grabs a crowbar. The crowbar comes in super handy as this Neanderthal picks her up and chokes her to death. Mike leaves and Aura farms a bit while putting the mask on. But this brutal moment was just the beginning. Kitchen hammer. This is the kill that still makes longtime fans uncomfortable. Me included. I'm not gonna lie. Michael grabs a hammer, enters the home, and without any hesitation brutally smashes it into her throat. She's out for the count in seconds. But Big Mike doesn't stop there. He trades the hammer for a big-ass knife and walks into the baby's room. He doesn't kill the baby though. Don't worry, he's not a monster. What makes this sequence so haunting isn't just the kill itself, but the way the camera constantly captures Michael's slow and calculated movements throughout the sequence. But if you thought that was bad and you're scared already, you're going to hate the next one. Fireman slaughter. The fireman slaughter is easily one of the most violent beginnings in the franchise. The scene begins with Michael stepping out of the burning house he got trapped in previously, surrounded by armed firefighters. Most horror villains would retreat, but this is Michael freaking Myers. He doesn't give a fuck. He goes head on with the fireman. He uses a Halligan bar, an axe, and even a circular saw to slice through these dudes. The absolute strength behind every blow is terrifying because they were not helpless teenagers. They were grown-ass dudes. But unfortunately for these guys, none of them stood a chance. And that wasn't even close to the worst of what was coming next. Big John, Little John. This was one of the most gut-wrenching kills in Halloween Kills. The two characters had turned Michael's childhood house into their home, unknowingly painting a target on their backs. Michael's attack on them was totally calculated and slow. He gouged out Big John's eyes with his bare hands in one of the most terrifying close-ups that even the series has ever shown. Little John's death followed soon after, but what made the moment especially chilling was the consequences. Michael posed their bodies in a disturbing recreation of a family photo, almost mocking the domestic happiness they had built inside his home. This showed a side of Myers that wasn't just brutal, but it was cruel. But this death is far from the most painful one on the list. Cameron's death. This one stands out because of how extended and merciless it was. Cameron took a whole knife to the gut before Michael repeatedly smashed his head into a stair railing, the wood splintering as bone cracked again and again. Most slasher villains would stop after one or two blows, but Michael dragged it out. Just when it seemed that Cameron had suffered enough, Myers twisted his neck in the most brutal way possible just to double-check he's dead. But Michael's cruelty didn't end there, because what came next was a slow, painful death like no other. Nurse Karen. Karen is about to go for a dip until Michael shows up behind her. They have a moment together. What? Karen has a little nibble of Mike's hand before it takes a dark turn. Michael turns up the temperature and starts dunking her face into it until it literally begins to melt away. Now it's unclear whether she drowned or just melted her brain, but it looks mad. Painful, if you ask me. Looks like Mikey took a page out of Saw's book here. But if you thought that was painful, remember they only get worse from here. Shotgun impalement. The return of Michael Myers gave us another unforgettable kill. And no, Michael didn't use the shotgun as a gun. Why would Mike do that? In a cruel twist of creativity, he lifted it like a spear and rammed it through Kelly Meeker, pinning her to the wall. The image of her lifeless body hanging from a weapon was terrifying. Fans often point out that this kill demonstrates Myers' tendency to use anything at his reach, not just knives. +1 for creativity. And if you thought Michael had stopped being creative, wait until the end. Tina's death. The setup is classic slasher material. A young girl trying to protect the protagonist. Tina runs directly into danger, confronting Michael to hopefully get the time to escape. Her bravery makes the moment even more heartbreaking. But the emotional weight of this scene still lingers with fans because Tina wasn't just another nameless victim. She sacrificed herself knowingly, and Michael didn't even flinch. This was a heartbreaking death, but the next one was horrifying. Annie Brackett. Of course, no list of Michael Myers' most painful kills would be complete without mentioning Laurie Strode's friend Annie Brackett in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. This version of Michael was wild, almost animalistic, and Annie's death reflected that brutality. He cornered her in her own home and unleashed a stabbing frenzy that seemed endless. Annie's death wasn't just violent, it was messy and personal. It felt less like a horror movie kill and more like a real-life home invasion nightmare. If this guy broke into my home, he can have it. But this death was nowhere near as bad as the ones later on the list. But first we need to look at this next one. Wall impalement callback. Even minor characters didn't escape Michael's rage in horrifying ways. In Halloween H20, there's the horrifying kill where Michael impales a young woman through her back with a kitchen knife, leaving her suspended like a disturbing piece of art. It's a callback to Bob's death in the original, but with a new new change. The visual balance between the two kills reminds us that no matter how many years passed by, Michael's methods remain frighteningly consistent. Honestly, I respect Michael for the consistency here. It's been decades since he started, and he's keeping up with the knife. Until we look at the next one, Head Crush. Of course, there's the well-known and very painful Head Crush in Halloween 2018. Michael slams his boot down on the doc's skull, instantly crushing it like a watermelon. The sound was so graphic that even seasoned horror fans admitted it caught them off guard. It's not just the slaughter that makes this kill memorable, it's the total strength and finality of it. Michael doesn't need elaborate traps or extended torture. Just when the horror seemed complete, one stomp erased everything. Knife through the neck. If the 2018 head stomp showed Michael's absolute strength, then the infamous knife through the neck sequence in Halloween Kills doubled down on his brutality. The victim was pinned down as Michael drove the blade through with such force that it nearly lifted the body off the ground. The sound of the blade slicing into flesh was heartbreaking, but what made it worse was how casually Michael did it. No rush, no struggle, just precise, surgical motion. The moments like this remind us that Michael doesn't just kill, he treats his murders like an art. If you think that violence couldn't get more brutal, the next victim will prove you wrong. Marion Chambers. Marion Chambers was the nurse who first appeared in the 1978 film and returned in Halloween Kills. Fans were excited to see a legacy character survive so long, but Michael made sure her ending was cruelly memorable. Trapped in her car, she desperately fired a gun at him, missing every single shot. Michael smashed the window, pulled the weapon away, and stabbed her repeatedly in the chest and body with such precision that each strike felt purposely placed. Her screams echoing in the trapped car space added to the sense of hopelessness. For longtime fans, seeing an original character die so brutally was extremely terrible, and it cemented Michael's reputation for having no mercy, even for those who tied to his own history. Even familiar faces weren't safe. Michael's brutality cuts deeper than ever before. Smith's Grove escape kill. Another painful sequence is from Rob Zombie's Halloween. During the escape scene at Smith's Grove, Michael brutally slaughters multiple guards and inmates in rapid succession, but one particular kill stands out. He lifts a guard and smashes his head repeatedly against the concrete wall until nothing but just blood remains. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't dramatic, it was raw, animalistic violence. Rob Zombie's version of Michael emphasized physicality, showing how overwhelming strength alone could be horrifying. Watching a grown man reduced to a rag doll in seconds is the kind of brutality that burns itself into your memory. It was a brutal act, but Michael's cruelty was far more than that. Ronnie. Few kills are as grotesque as Deborah Meyer's boyfriend Ronnie. In the same 2007 reboot, Michael duct tapes him to a chair and proceeds to beat him savagely with a baseball bat. Every swing lands with bone-crunching realism, each hit harder than the last. It is not just the blood, it is the uncomfortable closeness of the scene. Michael doesn't just rush, he enjoys the moment, enjoying each strike like a predator playing with his prey. The prolonged suffering makes this one of the most disturbing kills in the entire history of the franchise. But if you think that was disturbing, Halloween turned things up in pure brutality. Samantha Thomas. She tries to hide from Michael, but he cornered her in a barn. Instead of a simple knife stab, Michael, being creative, used a scythe, slicing through her with brutality. The choice of weapon makes this kill extremely unique. The wide, sweeping motion of the scythe shows Michael's strength. Fans often remember this scene just because of its creativity and the imagery of a farm tool used for slaughter. The scythe was enough to make the death horrifying, but the next one still stings harder. Rachel Carruthers. Her death shocked all the audience because she was the final girl of Halloween 4. Her return seemed like a promise of survival, but in reality, Michael had some other plans. He cornered her in her own house and stabbed her in the chest with scissors, killing her quickly but cruelly. The emotional pain of losing a beloved character so early in the film made the scene feel even more emotional. Sometimes, it's not just the weapon or the blood, it is the betrayal of expectations that makes the kill hurt so much. If that seemed unsettling, Halloween took it to a whole new level of violence. Laurie Strode's death. While Halloween Resurrection itself is controversial among fans, the death of Laurie Strode at the beginning is iconic. After years of surviving Michael, Laurie finally gets captured in one of the dumbest ways possible. Classic Halloween writing. Michael stabs her and drops her off a rooftop. Her body flies through the air before hitting the ground with a thud. It wasn't just the end of a character, it was the end of a legacy. For fans, watching Laurie die felt like being stabbed in the heart themselves. But luckily, this movie was completely erased from the Halloween timeline. Hooray! Hypodermic needle. But while Laurie's death was emotionally devastating, few kills rivaled the pure shock of the nurse's death in Halloween 2 with the hypodermic needle. Michael calmly appears behind her, and before she could react, he stabs a syringe directly into the side of her head. A common medical tool being used as a murder weapon made the scene scary. It's clean and efficient, but also deeply unsettling. It's by far one of the most disturbing deaths in the entire franchise. But these next are the worst Michael Myers kills you will ever see. Thanks for watching. Before I show them to you, make sure you subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. Boy on the playground. Then there is the boy on the playground in Halloween Kills. While the franchise usually guides clear of directly harming children, this scene crosses that line. Michael lures the boy closer to him before brutally attacking him, leaving his body for to be discovered by others. The thought that even children are not safe now adds a new level of fear to Michael Myers' legend. It strips away the last sense of security audiences might have ever had. If Michael can kill anyone, anywhere, then no character is safe, and that unpredictability makes every scene more frightening. If childhood wasn't sacred before, this shattered that illusion forever. Dumbwaiter kill. Going back to Halloween H20, Sarah's death in the dumbwaiter is another cruel masterpiece. Trapped inside the lift, she tried desperately to escape from Michael, but he cut down the rope. The dumbwaiter crashes down, crushing her leg in the most horrifying way, which was possible. Limping and broken, she still tries to crawl away, only for Michael to finish her with a terrible stabbing. The mix of prolonged suffering, first the leg crush, then the stabbing, makes this one of the most drawn-out and painful deaths in the franchise. Fans still shudder at the sound of bones snapping as the dumbwaiter came down. Think that was rough? Halloween took it to another level of brutality. Judith Myers. Of course, any talk about painful Michael Myers kills must include Judith Myers, his first victim. At just 6 years old, Michael stabbed his own sister to death in the original Halloween of 1978. Its impact lies in its innocence. The idea of a child committing such a kill sets the tone for the entire franchise. Judith's screams, the constant stabbing, and the shocking reveal of Michael as a young boy all create a moment that fans still view as one of the most disturbing in horror history. It began with innocence, but nothing stayed innocent after that. If you found that scene rough, Halloween made it ruthless. Oscar's fence post. Then there's the shocking brutality of Oscar's death in Halloween 2018. Thinking Michael was just a man in a mask, Oscar tries to reason with him.
I'm leaving, right?
But Myers grabs him and impales his head on a spiked fence post. The image of his face slowly sliding down the metal is enough to make anyone flinch. It is a drawn-out graphic and hard to forget. The fence post serves as both a weapon and a display, turning Oscar's death into a horrifying piece of street art left by the shade. If you enjoyed this video and want to see the most painful Jason Voorhees kills, click the video on the screen.